Hiker takes a photograph and makes a chilling discovery. Sailor Gilliams is only still alive because she dyed her hair red. The 22-year-old and her 22-year-old friend Brendan Vega were hiking a route in Santa Barbara, California. Their lack of knowledge was evident, as they found the terrain to be more hazardous than anticipated and had difficulty returning to their car as night fell. Then, Gilliams fractured her left leg after landing awkwardly after leaping from a boulder. From there, things just got worse. They didn't have flashlights with them, and their cell phones ran out of battery. Vega fell while attempting to carry Gilliams, breaking his foot, his elbow, and his glasses. The couple's enjoyable day outside had quickly turned into a nightmare. Gilliams stayed where he was, unable to move, while Vega went to fetch assistance. That was her last memory of him. She commented that even though she was losing consciousness, she was screaming for help the entire night and the following day. She stopped believing that someone would locate her and thought that she would pass away and no one would be able to help her. Her lungs had failed, and she had stopped screaming by the following afternoon. With flies flying all around, Gilliams laid face down in mud and leaves. 3 hikers came into the area at this time. Nicole Gergen noticed a glimpse of a flame of red hair in her peripheral vision and then noticed it moving. At Hasbro Children's Hospital in Rhode Island, 29-year-old pediatric resident Gergen recognized that Gilliams's injuries might be fatal. Her partner Joe Villapiano and his brother-in-law Peter Biava accompanied her on the walk as well. Villapiano made a 911 call. He was the only one who had brought his cell phone, although Biava had first advised against it so they might have a stronger connection with the natural world. The 28-year-old Biava recounted that this route had dangerous boulders and rocks, so no one else was there. It was also Monday afternoon during business hours. The 33-year-old Villapiano then got in touch with Gilliams's mother and aunt. Because he was so afraid, he went to the police station. Her mother, Sandy Lipkin, told news outlets that they had no idea where she was. Since she hadn't seen her daughter in a while, she was concerned when Gilliams didn't return her calls. Sailor Gilliams arrived at Cottage Hospital via airlift. She was told 2 days later that Vega had been discovered, and it was reported that he had passed away most likely from a fall while he was trying to get assistance. The funeral for Vega's son was postponed by his mother so that Gilliams could attend. After 11 months and 5 surgeries, Gilliams is now employed as her mother's legal assistant and has returned to Ventura College to continue her education. The impact of her injuries motivated her to register in a holistic healing course. After the incident, Jeff Gilliams made a life-changing decision to spend more time with his daughter by retiring from the Navy after 14 years of service. He stated it was doubtful that anyone would have found his daughter for months if it weren't for the 3 hikers. Biava, who subsequently secured employment as a treasurer for an asset management company, is still in awe of her good fortune. Biava claimed that they weren't even in California the morning it happened. The previous evening, he had flown red-eye from Florida. For her part, Gilliams said that she now stays on the trails. The last photo of Geraldine Lage on the Appalachian Trail. Geraldine Lage, aged 68, was a former Air Force nurse who enjoyed taking lengthy hikes in the Tennessee area around her house. She made the decision, in the summer of 2013, to take on the task of hiking the entire length of the Appalachian Trail in 6 months, much like many other ardent hikers. She started off hiking with a buddy named Jane Lee, but eventually went it alone. On July 22, 2013, she was last spotted by other hikers at the Poplar Ridge shelter on the trail. Then she was gone. She went off the route to relieve herself on July 23, 2013, and it didn't seem like she could find her way back. Jerry had only lived for 26 days in the wilderness before her untimely passing, and it took more than 2 years for her remains to be found. July 23, 2013, Jerry was lost and attempted to text her husband. She said that she was in some trouble at approximately 11 in the morning. Unfortunately, due to inadequate mobile connectivity in the area, the text was never sent. After that, Geraldine made 10 more attempts to send the text in the following hour and a half in an attempt to get higher ground. After failing to get in touch with George, she finally made the decision to camp for the night. George got really worried the next day and called the police to report that he thought Jerry might be missing. The Warden Service launched the formal search operation, involving search planes, state police, fire departments, and rangers from national parks. Sadly, severe rainy weather was plaguing the area at the time, making it more difficult to find Geraldine. To try and follow a scent, they utilized canine teams, conducted interviews with hikers, and sought side trails. However, despite a thorough search, Geraldine was nowhere to be seen, and it appeared as though the wild had engulfed her. Jane Lee, Jerry's first hiking partner, informed wardens that her buddy occasionally struggled to keep up and found it difficult to navigate with a map and compass. Before a personal situation took her away, Jane Lee had trekked a significant portion of the trail with Lage. Geraldine's remains were eventually discovered in the vicinity of Reddington Township, near the Reddington Stream, in October 2015, more than 2 years after she was reported missing. It was then discovered that Geraldine had lived for about 2 months in the wilderness before she perished from starvation and the elements. She waited in vain for an unshown rescue squad. But despite approaching the camp to within around 100 yards, at least 3 K9 teams were unable to find her. Her camp was discovered and documented on video by a team working on the Animal Planet reality series Northwoods Law. 3 miles from her last known location, on US Navy property in Reddington, the body was discovered. The location is rather inaccessible and highly remote, and the Navy uses it for its survival, evasion, resistance, and escape program. Being in a dense forest with the tent tucked under a few giant trees whose branches blocked the sky made it hard to spot the campsite unless you were standing right near to it. To keep her tent dry, Jerry had constructed a sleeping place out of small trees and pine needles. To add some protection, she had tied a space blanket between branches. The neighboring trees were blackened and burnt, indicating that she had also attempted to start fires. Maps, a space blanket, a raincoat, string, Ziploc bags, a functioning torch, dental floss, a blue baseball cap, and a handcrafted necklace with a white stone tied in twine were among the items they discovered within the camp. Despite being so close to her camp on multiple occasions, it appeared that the sniffer dogs were unable to detect her scent since her remains were inside the tent. However, given the close proximity of searchers to Jerry's camp, it was puzzling why she didn't detect their movements and alert for assistance. Maybe by then, hunger and dehydration had worn her out too much. However, it does seem a little puzzling that Geraldine evaded detection by the numerous search parties and was unable to locate the neighboring logging road. The fact that she was in a US Navy training facility adds to the mystery surrounding her whereabouts. The Dara Creature. The Dara Creature is the recovered carcass of an unknown creature believed to be of supernatural origin, discovered at the side of Highway 12, located within the state of Louisiana. The creature is described as possessing primate-like legs and arms, ending in opposable thumbs on all 4 limbs, having the head of a canine-like creature, a body completely covered in thick, large furs, similar to a sheep, and completely covered in brownish-black fur from head to toe. The dimensions of the creature's remains are believed to have been an estimated 4 to 5 feet in length, weighing more than 250 pounds. Back in 1996, a woman by the name of Barbara Mullins was driving down Highway 12, found in the state of Louisiana, when she noticed the body of a strange animal located on the side of the highway. Curious as to what the creature was, Barbara Mullins pulled over to the side of the road and got out of her vehicle to make a closer inspection. Originally, due to the amount of body hair on the animal that appeared to puff out in many different directions, Barbara had assumed that the creature was a St. Bernard dog that had been hit by a passing car and dragged to the side of the road. However, it soon became apparent that the carcass was evidence of something far more unusual. Upon closer inspection, Barbara Mullins could see in clear detail that the limbs of the creature ended in strange human-like hands, similar to that of a primate. The face of the creature, however, seemed dog or fox-like in appearance, with small pointed ears, and the body hair of the creature was a puffy dark brown, completely unlike any known primate species. Believing that she had stumbled on evidence of an escaped zoo animal or unknown undiscovered creature, Barbara Mullins would return to her vehicle to pull out a camera and take several high-quality photographs of the creature from different angles, as well as having another driver within the picture frame. Although the identity of the other driver is unknown, Barbara Mullins claims the person in the picture was a random driver who had stopped at the scene sometime after Barbara herself began taking pictures. Shortly after the mysterious driver had arrived on scene, the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries would soon show up and remove the carcass from the side of Highway 12 with the express purpose claiming that they were going to conduct an investigation on the identity of the creature. On the 5th of September, several days following the discovery of the carcass, the DeQuincy News would become aware of the strange discovery and run several articles on the bizarre nature of the unidentifiable fauna, claiming that the creature could have been evidence of the chupacabra or the commonly cited devil monkey of North America. Although the unknown carcass, referred to as the Derrida roadkill, had been within the possession of the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, the State Department decided to send the carcass to the Louisiana State University for more scientific research to be conducted. After a year of having the carcass within their possession, the Louisiana State University claimed that they were not equipped with the necessary scientific equipment required to conduct a more thorough research and accurately identify the species of animal, and so decided to transfer the carcass to an unknown private lab to conduct further investigations. After 4 years of possessing the Derrida roadkill carcass, it would later be revealed that the private lab had sold the remains of the animal to an unknown private collector. No official scientific inquiries into the species of the animal have surfaced. In an effort to explain away the cause of the carcass, the official stance of the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries claimed that the animal remains belonged to a Pomeranian dog, despite the typical Pomeranian dog weighing only 7 pounds and being less than 8 inches tall, whereas the carcass was described as being as estimated 200 pounds and almost 3 feet in length. Additionally, the official stance does not help to accurately explain the primate-like feat of the creature. Dissatisfied with the official explanation, researcher Roy Young would begin to conduct a formal private inquiry into the carcass to locate the potential buyer of the Derrida roadkill from the suspected private labs. By the year 2000, Roy Young was able to gain access to the original high-quality photos of the creature and believed that the animal was connected to the local Louisiana legends of the Lugaru, a Cajun werewolf legend dating back to the early 1600s and adopted by the French legends of the Lugaru. For some added context, the popularity of the Lugaru would reach its height during the French colonization of the Americas, with many of the travelers having been told stories of the creature and believed that the untamed woods of the Canadian countryside could have been the perfect hiding spot for a large wolfman. Throughout the early 16th century, many French colonists claimed to have spotted a large wolf that could stand upright and walk like a man, though they did not say that the animal had the body of a man, merely that it was a large unknown wold, many times larger than any wolf they had previously seen in Europe, that could walk and run on its hind legs. Back in 1794, a wealthy French fur trader, who had been travelling back and forth between France and the American colonies, described an encounter with the Lugaru, claiming that a creature of about 7 feet in height, the head of a wolf and the body of a man covered with furs, had been stalking his caravan through the woods as they travelled and had watched them from its red, glowing eyes. In the modern day, the legends of the Lugaru are mostly told in French-Canadian states, since many of the original American French colonists would travel to Canada during the era of United States independence. Given the fact that Cajuns tend to speak a slang-style archaic version of French, specifically referred to as the Cajun dialect, the Lugaru legends have been transformed into the Rougarou legends. The Rougarou seems to hold more of a North American dogman influence and less of the traditional werewolf-style legends. Rather than the night of a full moon or the insatiable bloodlust of a transforming man, the Rougarous are believed to be a supernatural dogman creature capable of appearing and disappearing, similar to a demon. Believing that the recovered Derrida carcass was evidence of the possible source of the Cajun Rougarou legends, Roy Young would begin expanding his search for potential collectors of werewolf-like collections, or those deeply connected with the legends surrounding other similar Southern-style monsters, such as the skunk ape of the Honey Island swamp monster. It would be towards the end of the year that Roy Young would make contact with a private collector who wished to stay anonymous and claimed to have been in possession of the skeletal remains of the Derrida roadkill. Although Young has been secretive about the identity of the man, the collector was believed to have been from around the Lake Charles area. Unfortunately, After meeting up with the man and looking at the skeletal remains, it became obvious to research Roy Young that the recovered carcass was nothing more than the skeletal remains of a random dog, and were not the authentic remains of the Derrida roadkill. Shortly after this encounter, the researcher would end his search for the Derrida roadkill with the belief that the private collector responsible for the purchase of the remains would never make himself public. Theories and connections. The disappearance of Jeremiah Jamal Parker. On the 11th of April, back in 2004, a 19-year-old American man would be reported missing after visiting the North Sherwood Forest Park located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Several theories have connected Jeremiah Parker's bizarre disappearance with the Honey Island swamp monster, as the location of his disappearance runs adjacent to US Highway 12, a major traffic way that runs straight through the Louisiana Honey Island swamp, and has been at the center of a number of impossible-to-explain eyewitness encounters of the monster. According to the official missing persons report, at around 6 in the evening on April 11th on Easter Sunday, Jeremiah Parker had journeyed to the North Sherwood Forest Park for a moment of relaxation. Accompanying Mr. Parker was his cousin, who has chosen to remain unidentified. According to the cousin, while Mr. Parker was with him, they had been talking about a movie that Jeremiah had recently seen and was deeply moved by. Suddenly, Mr. Parker's cousin claimed that Jeremiah decided to park at the North Sherwood Forest Park for some unknown reason and stepped out of his vehicle, leaving him in the car with the engine still running. After waiting for a few minutes, the cousin would step out of the vehicle to look for his cousin, who was nowhere to be found. When investigators combed the region shortly after, Jeremiah Parker's cell phone and one of his shows were later found in an area behind a row of trees that rested adjacent to a large fishing pond, believing that Parker must have been through the region, though no other sign of him was recovered. The official missing persons report would describe that Parker was last seen wearing a white t-shirt, grey shorts, an LA Dodgers baseball cap, and a pair of Nike shoes, with no other items accompanying him at the time of his disappearance. Without looking into the incident too much further, as well as there being no body to recover, investigators believed that Jeremiah Parker must have disappeared and travelled out of state for personal reasons, with the belief that the 19-year-old may have left for Canada. Parker's family, however, refuses to believe the conclusions of the investigators, citing that Jeremiah was never known for leaving his home for more than a day at a time and always returning before dark. Given the rather scrawny nature of Jeremiah Parker, with physical dimensions described by family as being approximately 120 pounds and only roughly 5.5 feet tall, it was uncharacteristic of him to suddenly disappear without telling anyone. Additionally, the family claimed that Jeremiah Parker was still in the middle of finishing up his associate's degree from the Baton Rouge Community College at the time of his disappearance, a small degree that he was still paying for while working at the local Wendy's old-fashioned hamburgers fast food joint. Investigators would later learn, however, that Jeremiah Parker had made several statements to family members about him leaving soon after he had watched a movie that gave him an intense emotional reaction. According to his mother, the film that he was often referring to was The Passion of the Christ, and had deeply moved Parker in such a way that many had often described his behavior as rather unusual in the days prior to his sudden disappearance. Regardless of these facts, Parker's cousin believes that Jeremiah's disappearance is related to the strange fishing pond located at the North Sherwood Forest Park. Though the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries states that no dangerous animals live in the pond, such as the commonly sighted alligators throughout the Louisiana region, the cousin is convinced that a large creature must have attacked and dragged Jeremiah Parker deep underwater. No further evidence has surfaced in recent years surrounding the incident. Given the fact that the Derrida roadkill was discovered within the state of Louisiana, an area rich in stories of encounters with a werewolf-like creature referred to as the Lugaru, many researchers have made the connection between the discovered remains and the Lugaru itself. According to several French publications surrounding local legends, the Lugaru, a title that directly translates to the title of Wolfman, is a werewolf-like creature that is known for stalking the French countryside. Not many specified accounts of the Lugaru have been recorded, as the creature was mostly told as a rumor of a monster lurking out across the countryside. Yet the legend has surfaced several times in publications surrounding local folktales. The popularity of the Lugaru would reach its height during the French colonization of the Americas, with many of the travelers having been told stories of the creature and believed that the untamed woods of the Canadian countryside could have been the perfect hiding spot for a large wolfman. Throughout the early 16th century, many French colonists claimed to have spotted a large wolf that could stand upright and walk like a man, though they did not say that the animal had the body of a man, merely that it was a large, unknown wold, many times larger than any wolf they had previously seen in Europe, that could walk and run on its hind legs. Back in 1794, a wealthy French fur trader who had been traveling back and forth between France and the American colonies described an encounter with the Lugaru, claiming that a creature of about 7 feet in height, the head of a wolf and the body of a man covered with furs, had been stalking his caravan through the woods as they traveled and had watched them from its red, glowing eyes. In the modern day, the legends of the Lugaru are mostly told in French Canadian states, since many of the original American French colonists would travel to Canada during the era of United States independence. The only other predominantly French-speaking community left in the United States were the descendants of African slaves that mixed many aspects of their culture with Haitian and French influences and are commonly referred to as the Cajuns of the American South.